podcast, Soulestic Intelligence podcast. It is Eastern, or it's daylight savings time now. So we've gone from standard to daylight this last Sunday. So I think spring ahead, so it feels like you lost an hour. It's kind of an odd thing. I used to be really excited about the fall back because I like the extra hour. All right. So today we are going to be discussing imposter syndrome. I have a couple series of reels that I've done. So one is on burnout awareness, and we talked about burnout last week. Long one. I don't know that I can go the 2 hours again. So I'm going to limit this to around an hour. But burnout is essentially chronic stress. So chronic is means it's continuously going on, like it never ends. And when your body is in stress, and I can't emphasize this enough, anything that you're working to do, working out, eating right, I mean, those are two of the biggest things that I can think of right now. Anytime that you're in that state and you're trying to, like, let's say, lose weight, but your body is under chronic stress, I think that's part of the reason why you're plateauing, which is really critical when we're working on our energy and really cleaning up that energy. That's when you start to see more things come in, because you're able to hold things better. And I mean that in an energetic way. You're holding. So when you have, let's say, you have increased weight, or let's say you gained 10 pounds, and you're like, oh man, I really want to lose this 10 pounds, but it's really, really difficult for me to lose it. Your body is like holding it in an area, let's say it's in your stomach. You've got the love handles. Your body's holding that stress there. And in order to release it, you've got to address whatever the stress issues are. So once you do that, you'll start to see some of the weight come off. You'll start to feel healthier. Your skin might start glowing, because your body, once it gets into that rest and digest, is now able to take the nutrients from the food that you eat. It's able to respond to the things that you want it to do, because it's in digest mode and you're rested and you're available. Hi, Angel. Welcome. So the burnout awareness series, the reels are out on Instagram and then on my Facebook Soulestic Intelligence page. So if you guys can go give a follow there, or a like, that would be great. Or find me on Instagram. I am doing well. I am in Oregon, USA. And today we're talking about imposter syndrome. So yesterday I did a series of videos, and they're still coming out. So the first one is I'm doing well. So the series I did yesterday was about confidence, and stress we're going to relate those into this imposter syndrome as well. But confidence is really important, because when you're confident and knowing that you're able to do something, which the imposter really questions, that we're going to talk about several different personas that you might have as an imposter. And let me pull my notes up here. I also apologize. I did some sanding, and so now I have this, like, it sounds like a cold, but it's not. It's just my body's rejecting the particulates that I was breathing in for this little project that I was working on. Can you tweak? I don't know what that means. I mean, I guess I can if I really wanted to. So, confidence, I was relating the analogy of me going and doing ballroom dancing, which is a really great way to, if you want to deepen into your feminine energy or into your masculine energy. I feel like dancing is like one of the best ways to actually act it out in your physical being, and it will help you relate to whichever energy that you're really looking to tap into. And the basis of dancing is confidence. Somebody that's going out and on the dance floor, let's say that you're learning how to waltz. If you've never done any classes on waltzing, when you go out there, you're gonna be really blind and confused, and you don't know how to do any of the moves. And you start with some basics, and then you kind of build on that. But once you're building, you're gaining that confidence. So as a lead, you're the one that's like being the visionary. You're the one that's directing whatever the turns are, wherever you're going on the dance floor. And so you have to learn all these techniques. And the same thing goes for a follow. It's not just, oh, I just get pushed around the dance floor and it's all good and easy. There's certain techniques that you as a follow have to listen for. And so sometimes they can be little touches of the hand and pressure, or just a movement, and you're supposed to keep this composure. And the more confident that you are, the better you are at going around the dance floor without fumbling your steps or anything like that. So you're gaining this technique, you're gaining confidence. So it's a great analogy, and I think a great exercise for anybody who's looking to deepen into certain parts of themselves where maybe they're not confident. Get good at something. But we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and how it ties into this. And so, imposter syndrome is this psychological thought process where the person who has the imposter syndrome, and it sounds like we've heard imposter before. It sounds like we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. You can anything with me. My Instagram handle is Soulestic Intelligence, and I think it should be in my links. If it's not, then I'll make sure to post it. But it's at Soulestic Intelligence on Instagram, and you'll see I have my picture there. So the imposter basically has this mask on them, and there's different personas that mask can look like. And as I was kind of developing my notes for the show today, I identified with every single one of them. And a large part of this is from being a child. And when I was a kid, I had been mostly around my family. We would go out into the mountains. I was kind of raised a little bit feral. And I mean that in like when I was socially integrating into my peers, the social my social ability was very low. My social ability is very low. I had a hard time connecting with people that were not in my family circle. And I want to say that my experience is shared among preteens and all that. But sometimes I find that some people don't relate to that as well. But that age of like preteen to teenager, where you're socializing and you're trying to connect with people, was really difficult for me. So in that, I had this mask that, or masks that I was able to use. One, I was really kind of a natural genius, which is one of the ones we're going to talk about, things came effortlessly to me. I didn't have to like crack the books and pass the test. Like I could just take a test and pass it. So I had this natural ability of like just being able to do things, but in that it was a little you kind of like give and take. You're a little bit socially awkward. It was hard for me to connect, so I didn't have like a lot of friends. I had, really close, a minimal close group of like a few friends. Let me see if I can find it here on. Um, I'm just looking at my Instagram on Instagram. Yep, it should just be Soulestic Intelligence. That's Soul, Soulestic Intelligence. Anyhow, so you can definitely get a hold of me. You can email me at Amelie, Amelie, at soulesticintelligence.com. That's my email. So as we're talking about these personas, and as I'm looking at the personas, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so many of these. It was hard for me to really find my identity as, especially when you're in that like, if you're in a transition, a life transition from being a child into a teenager, or being a teenager into an adult, or even like, a lot of people in my age group right now, a lot of them have children and they're going to be leaving the nest. Like I have a 19-year-old son, and my youngest is 12, and there's just a few more years of being that like one-on-one mother where you have a young minor in the household. At a certain point, my identity is going to shift into being, having adult children. And some people my age, maybe some of you can relate, have younger children, and you're still like in my age bracket. So as we are looking at this, so the imposter feels like a fraud. They feel that they have to be somebody that they know that they aren't. They're wearing a mask. And then there's also this low level of confidence that the things that you're doing are going to make you feel found out. So you have this fear of being seen, or this fear of being unseen, and it's kind of this battle of fear in your system. And then you feel that you're fraudulent, and that you don't have the capacity to hold in a certain area that you want to. So you feel like a fraud. You feel that people are going to find you out, and this is all imagined in it's a psychological situation here. So common signs of imposter syndrome are feeling like you don't deserve your success. I can't remember if it was last week or if it was like the week before or whatever, but I've mentioned this before. I went and got my bachelor's degree in business, and as I was graduating and ready to walk down and get my diploma that day, I just remember thinking like, you finally finished what you were doing, but you don't like, I recognize my feeling like I didn't feel accomplished. I didn't feel successful. I just felt like I just ticked another box of what was needed of me. And it wasn't really satisfying, or or anything like that. And a lot of it was from being, from burning myself out, getting that degree. I was working full time and going to school full time, and taking these 300 and 400 level classes, which are a little bit more challenging. But the time, and I was also buying a house. I was ready to close on a house, I think a week after I graduated. So there was a lot going on, and I didn't feel that success. I didn't feel, maybe not even that I was deserving of it, but it just didn't feel accomplished around it. So that's one of the drivers of the imposter syndrome. The next one is the fear of being found out as incompetent. So the incompetence that you think you may have is not actually real. But you have this fear of being found out as incompetent. Like somebody's going to say, you don't have the experience to deliver whatever you say you're going to deliver. And a lot of people experience this when they're starting things out new. Like I straight, I could go onto the dance floor and say, "Oh yeah, I know how to waltz," and not have any experience in it, and then I will be found out as incompetent. So the right thing is to be honest and upfront with your partner and say, "Hey, look, I've only taken a few dance lessons. I know a little bit of some of the basics or whatever." So we look at like attaching or attacking that fear from the beginning. There are other things like in the energy field and the coaching field, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you don't have said educational background, so you don't have what it takes to deliver as whatever you are." And I've seen this a lot with, coaches, is where they kind of fight this incompetence or this being seen as incompetent feeling, when in actuality they may they may be delivering some of the best medicine to people that need it, that want that delicious energy that they're delivering. Other signs are overworking to compensate for self-doubt. So just in your own system, you're doubtful that people are going to take you seriously. You're doubtful that you're able to achieve whatever you're working towards. And so instead of taking it easy and doing everything kind of in this nice flowy phase, you overcompensate. You do all the things in order to be seen as relevant. And I feel a lot of women, and maybe I'm just speaking from my own experience, and maybe I should just stay in that, is that when we have a job and we're working and we're trying to prove ourselves by doing actions in our work life, and so like we end up taking on more and more and more, to the point of where now we're under like a lot of stress. So it's like kind of counterproductive, but in order to like prove ourselves to whomever, and they may not even see it, but we, in our own self-doubt, because we don't have that confidence in ourselves, are overcompensating and trying to prove to whomever, we're trying to show that we are able to perform a task, that we can handle that. Hi, Alex. Hi, is it Javid? I don't know how to say it. Really, really sorry. But welcome. Thank you for coming. I always appreciate. Somebody was asking how many viewers for your podcast is like good, and I said anybody that comes and pays attention and is here listening to my podcast, like I'm just grateful for the eyeballs, because we have so many sales marketing and ploys, and people are trying to go viral or whatever. And at the end of the day, like anybody who pays attention to your podcast, as long as they're like learning something and getting some good medicine out of it, that's all that really matters. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Another sign of imposter syndrome is dismissing compliments or achievements. So if you, let's say you did something really phenomenal and somebody was like, "Man, you did a great job on that." Like, but you don't accept that compliment. You kind of just like, "Oh yeah, no big deal," or whatever. That is a sign of imposter syndrome. So, and then finally, comparing yourselves to others or feeling inferior. And I feel like a lot of women do this. So, most of my podcast is emotional intelligence teaching and energetics teaching. So, I teach you some techniques to kind of get over some of these things. My goal is to have everyone feel confident and to create awareness of themselves and maybe of others to help you relate better to others. So, my goal is that you feel harmony in yourself. I'm here to teach harmony. Okay, so who experiences these imposters syndromes? Anybody can. So it doesn't matter if you're if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're, a guy that's working on a manufacturing floor, if you're a high achieving CEO, it doesn't matter who it is. Everybody can experience this. And the reason I bring it up is very common in women and entrepreneurs, in people who have kind of these perfectionist tendencies. So these people feel like they have to prove something to somebody, and that's when you can start to experience that they're trying to legitimize what their experience, what their abilities are to others. And anybody can experience this. It doesn't matter how successful you are, how much money you have in the bank. It's everybody can experience this. So, Dr. Valerie Young, she did some research on some types of imposters, and so we're going to talk about the five ones she brought up. And like I said, as I was going through these, I was relating to every single one of them. So hopefully you can see where you might fall into some of these. So first, we have the perfectionist, and these people feel like they have to be flawless. Like everything that doesn't happen that's perfect is a mistake or a failure. And so we've heard about perfectionists. They're like your type A people, and I think it just kind of goes a little bit beyond that. Like they're unable to make a mistake. There's this video circulating in Reels, and it's no, it's Kourtney Kardashian, and she has this lady coming into her house, and Kourtney is like, she likes to have everything super organized and look perfect. Like she had all her drinks, they were like in a rainbow array as far as color in her fridge, and maybe you've seen this reel before. And then she had like a couple bowls. One was a bowl of oranges, one was a bowl of artichokes. And so the lady that was there trying to help her with this perfectionism, and she's like, take one of the artichokes and put it into the orange bowl, take one of the oranges and put it in the artichoke bowl, or switch a couple of these things around. And you could tell that all of the things that she was doing, she was just like, I don't like this, it doesn't feel good. And she was really resisting and kind of having a hard time where, like, visually the things were not panning out the proper way. So they feel like things must be flawless. They feel like anything that's a struggle is is a mistake. And so that's the first one. The second one is the expert. So these people feel that they have to know everything in order to be qualified to talk on a subject. And this one is kind of self-explanatory as well. So if you don't have a certain training, or you don't have certain, you know, certain whatever it is that makes you an expert in that field, they won't feel qualified. And I feel like a lot of coaches kind of sit in that energy of that belief of I'm not qualified to teach on this. So no, these are this is a research from Dr. Valerie Young on the imposter syndrome. So I'm just kind of going over some base stuff. What do you teach in your podcast? Have you studied medicine or psychological practice? I self-study a lot of stuff. I do a lot of reading, a lot of work, and I've done a lot of inner work, which is mostly what I teach is things that are successful for me. Why are the Kardashians so famous? They hit on a niche that, so for the Kardashians, women like to hear gossip. It's kind of a tribal thing. Women would kind of be in groups, and they would, talk about their life and whatever as women when we do get into groups. And so the Kardashians they take on that, plus they add a little bit of flair. So they have that. And I appreciate that compliment. Okay, so the next one is the soloist. So the soloist thinks that asking for help means that they're a failure. This one is also pretty self-explanatory. These people are maybe afraid is a way to describe it, but they don't want to look like they don't know it all. So they'll kind of isolate from others instead of integrating with others. They'll isolate and they'll figure it out on their own, which adds a lot of stress to their life. They think that if they ask for help, if they take on a project and then they're like, I need help with this, that is associated with failure, and so they feel like an imposter because they had to be a team instead of being on their own. Some people do well on their own, prefer it because they're a very introverted person, but just recognize within yourself, do I like to work with others, or do I like to work alone? And maybe there's a balance of how much you like to work alone and how much you like to work with others. For me, I'm fairly extroverted, so if I'm doing anything, I like to work with other people. But I have done the solo thing, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle because sometimes you have all the expertise and you don't know how to parse that out to others. The next one, number 4, is the natural genius. So these people expect to master things effortlessly. They struggle when things take effort. So my son, he is he was kind of like this. We worked through it, but he was having difficulty with a math concept, and he finally came to me and he was like, I need you to help me with this math concept. I'm not getting it. I'm having a really hard time and it doesn't make any sense to me. And so that struggle for him with that concept was difficult for him because he wants to appear as this natural genius, and he is very smart. But at the same time, like, we still need to build confidence in our abilities. And so, you know, within 45 minutes, I was showing him the concepts and he got it. And, that was just kind of a lesson of when I have a struggle, I need to ask for help instead of when I have a struggle, the effort that it's going to take is not worth it. And finally, the last one is superhuman. And so these people push themselves so hard because they want to show everybody that they're worth it, that they are worth their time, that their worth is associated with the work that they're doing. And so the superhuman is exactly what it sounds like. I feel like a lot of moms that are working kind of fall into this category, that they feel that they have to work and then raise the kids and then do all the household stuff and like keep everything in order. And I run into this time and time again. I've been this woman, so I can totally relate. But they feel like they have to prove themselves by doing all of the things, and it takes away from their inner work or their alone time for themselves. Like they don't have any moment for themselves, which is a disservice to what they are capable of. They've got all this energy that they could be giving in a beautiful way, and instead it's kind of being depleted in all these baskets instead of just really focusing on some of the things that they're best at. Okay. Now we're going to talk about to how this will show up. So I have 6 ways that this will show up in your life. The people that I like to work with are women who are looking to up their confidence and to have this emotional presence about them. So when we get into burnout, one of the when we get into burnout, we are already at this physical level. Maybe we have some physical signs that things are not going right. Maybe it's weight gain. Maybe it's pain, bodily pain in an area. Maybe it's exhaustion. These things are physically showing up, and you can watch last week's podcast of episode 13 on burnout, where I did go over like some of the causes and consequences of not treating burnout. But these things are going to start showing up. So the first thing is people pleasing and over apologizing. So people pleasing and over apologizing, people who say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," or I'm sorry," and they're not thinking about themselves, they're thinking about others. And these people tend to be more like have a higher level of empathy, a higher level of social awareness. And I've discussed this in the past podcasts, where the people pleasing and the over apologizing and the empathy of that comes from, it stems from your childhood, where in your childhood you had to kind of walk around on eggshells in order not to disturb a parent. So for me, my mom was really ingrained deeply into me to treat elders with respect. So everybody who was an elder had this this special, almost a pedestal of, respect them. I have to respect them. And so because of that, I would people please. Okay, that's an elder, that's a teacher, and now I have to serve this person, and I have to figure out what they like, what they don't like. And so I'm like hyper focused on other people. And so it kind of trained me as a child and then into adulthood of people pleasing is the way that you ingratiate yourself to others. And so it really raised this level of empathy, which is really tuning into other people's feelings, knowing what their needs are, and kind of watching for that. And it also increased the social awareness. And empathy and social awareness are two pieces of the 26 modalities of emotional intelligence. It's kind of a couple of there's 26 different areas. And so these two areas are really high. So if you have those and it's really high in those areas, chances are you experience something like I did, where you're having to kind of figure out what the person is that you're looking to serve, what their feelings and what they want is. Okay, so fear of disappointing these people and constantly seeking approval, like, did I do this right? Are they satisfied with the things that I've done? And if not, then I need to apologize and rework whatever I'm doing, and then now I can be present, because now they're satisfied. So that fear of disappointing others, pops in. People pleasers or people who over apologize a lot, they will downplay their skills, or apologize excessively for just being in the general vicinity. Like, they just want to be. They have a fear of being seen, especially if they don't feel like what they're delivering is satisfactory. Okay, so people who fall into this people pleasing or over apologizing, they tend to lack boundaries. So boundary setting is really important, and really diving into how I feel about the situation. So if I had a client that was having an issue with this, I would I would really work and start training them on, instead of looking at the person outside of you, let's start looking at the person inside of you. And I am very passionate about this, and I don't even know if the terminology is right. I'm still kind of toying around with it, but we have an empath and then we have a narcissist, and like, both of these characters and personas can learn from each other. And once you melt these two together, like, the empath needs to learn self-love, confidence, vision, charisma. They need to get that riz up. And then once they start to integrate some of the narcissistic traits into their persona, then they like harmonize. Whereas the narcissist can learn from the empath. The empath has got this really high level of awareness. They care about others, and so the narcissist would do well in melting those together. So once we start to get into this harmony phase, that you're integrated into both of these. Hello, Sophia. Do I like poetry? I do like poetry. I'm an introvert type of person, but I want to talk to people. That's why I use this way to talk to people. Oh, in chats, that's great. That's awesome. So, the narcissist typically will have really high boundaries. They know what they want. They're able to speak it. And the empath might feel a little small because they are unable to say, look, this is what I want. This is and so I would be working on integrating some of these beautiful traits that it's not the NPD, like, but they're just narcissistic. It's almost like this confidence. There are good characteristics of narcissism, and those are like confidence, being able to speak what they want, caring about themselves, loving themselves. And so the empath would do well with that. So I would start working on boundaries, working on self validation, validating your experience. It's in the whole wide world of things, as humans, our experience is only our experience. So worrying about what others are experiencing is actually detracting from your own experience. We are the authority in our own lives. We have we are the authority in our own lives. We are the authority in our own lives. We write the story. Authority starts with author. We are the authors of our story, okay? So if you are people pleasing and you're over apologizing and you're feeling small, you're writing that story. You're perpetuating that story. So I would work on rewriting that. And then instead of saying, I'm sorry or whatever, or even like my apologies, unless it's like a sincere apology, I would turn that around and say, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Now I'm going to take that in and see how I feel about that. Okay? Would those be static, or would someone oscillate between being narcissistic and empathetic? So the way that I describe this, hi Scar, the way that I describe this the best is you have like this horseshoe, okay? And then on one end you have the small percentage of people that have like narcissistic personality disorder. Like it's really extreme. It's at the end of this horseshoe. And then on the other end, you can have this really extreme empath, and they're just this doormat person that can't even speak up. They're so low that you kind of don't even want to be around them. So as you kind of go, there's a sliding scale on both sides. So the narcissist is kind of on this side. The narcissist would, like I said, they have confidence, self-love. They also have this manipulation that can be negative. And so I talk about how in this horseshoe, that you kind of want to be in this upper range where you're mixing the two together. So for the narcissist, they would do well with having a higher level of awareness. They would do well in having a higher level of devoting to others, because we still like want to get along with people. And, for the most part, not too many people. I mean, these are outliers. So imagine a bell curve. Like, they're outliers. The NPD and the extreme empath, they're super outliers. So most of the people are going to be in this area. But if you're like on the outside, we're working on normalizing both sides. So an empath may have a lack of love for themselves. And so learning how to love yourself is the correction to to that. And I don't think that any of like if you are, higher in narcissism, I don't think that, or narcissistic traits, I should say, I don't think that you're totally gone. You can correct it. Just as like the empath has a really high level of awareness, they have awareness of themselves. They don't have like anything above and beyond what the narcissist is. So we're just melting these traits together to create a really nice harmony. But great question. Thank you. So the next piece that might show up in your life is struggling to own your own achievements. So people that find themselves in this situation, they might attribute the things in their life to having really great luck or good timing, or maybe they look at others instead of themselves in any acknowledgement of any success that they have. So anything that has happened isn't from their own ability, but it's from others, or, you know, it just happened, and it happened the way that it needed to, instead of like owning that, yes, I had a hand in making this happen. So these people will feel undeserving of success, and they'll deflect any credit that they've actually put in, like their actual expertise. They'll deflect any of that achievement away from them, of not owning that. So people who, if you fall into this category, I would recommend keeping a journal of all your wins, all the things that you've achieved, even if it's a small thing. And some people, if you don't want a journal, maybe you have like a little notepad that you have, and you can put it in a jar or in a box, or however you want to keep that. That way, when you go back to look at the things that you've accomplished, you're getting your own personal feedback from yourself. And you're seeing some really high breakthroughs of, wow, I did this. In one of my jobs, I kept a log of all the money that I saved the company. And, it was like a little over 3% of revenue, which is a huge savings. But for me, I had a hard time like processing my value in the company. And so keeping that log, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually a really kick-ass employee. And I have this really great ability of being able to find cost savings. So if I ever had to go back to working for somebody, I could say, that is one of my achievements. I saved, X percent of revenue for this company for the year, whatever it was. So really honing in on all of your achievements and your wins. The next one is the fear of visibility and speaking up. And I did talk a little bit about this. So the fear of being seen is a huge, it's a huge issue. Or speaking up is a huge issue. Like, you don't want to be seen. And I go through bouts of this. Like, I tend to kind of peter back and forth between wanting to be a little extroverted and then being introverted. And so a lot of the times I just kind of want to sit back and not do anything. So I wait for moments when I'm feeling really inspired to speak, and then I go and speak and do my thing. And then I kind of parse that out over the time that I know I'm going to need to have some alone time. And that's just the way that I am. I just like to, I listen to my energy of today. I feel really introverted. I'm not going to get in front of the camera. Maybe there's days, actually, a few days ago, I was feeling really gross, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just ick. Blech. And I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do, and I had to. I was like, you have to get out of bed, and you have to, get dressed, and you have to get ready for your day. And so I was feeling really gross, just feeling really gross in general. And it's really funny in that moment, because I pushed through that, and then everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you look great today," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't feel great." It's kind of funny how that works sometimes. But aside from that, they hesitate to share ideas, voice opinions, or step into leadership roles. So instead of, maybe they do have like what it takes. They have the je ne sais quoi to get the project done, or to lead the charge on a certain area in their life, and or for others, maybe there's a volunteer opportunity. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to speak up and be seen in that leadership role, because they feel like they won't be able to achieve it. All, even if for all whatever, they have all the qualifications that it takes to meet that. Okay. And these people avoid being seen as the expert authority, or to be in that leadership role. Okay. So this is something. When I started dancing, ballroom dancing, I invited one of my friends, and I was like, "Oh yeah, come." And she's like, I think I want to invite my sister." I was like, "Oh heck yeah, bring your sister." And she's like, "Oh, she said she's not gonna come because she doesn't know how to dance, and so it's like really terrifying to be seen." And so when I talk about how confidence is super important, not just to dancing, but to just showing up for yourself, this is where I would work on with the correction of doing small confidence building challenges. I think dancing, going to a social or going to a class where you're learning it, or it doesn't have to be dancing, it can be anything. I really like dancing because it gets your body moving and that moves your energy and it unlocks like portions of your body that are locked up. Because if you are, especially if you're in freeze mode, then your body likely has some energy that is like bottled up in certain areas of, and it just needs to get kind of moving around. Singing is another way of like opening up your energy, especially if you have like a fear speaking up. Singing is a great way, even humming, and we'll kind of go over a little bit of these. Hopefully I don't go too long, but singing is a great way of unblocking some of the blocks that you have in here, or even primal yelling or screaming, like whatever is going to be gentle and is speaking to you at the moment. Those are great ways to like unlock that confidence in your voice. Or dancing, I think, is a great way of kind of unlocking that fear of visibility or fear of being seen, because you're in this group of people that are all at different levels and they've all been at the beginning. So even if they're really good at it, they're just happy that you're out doing something new. Other ways are posting things online. Zindagi said that this is a good format for him to use to speak, which is one of the ways that I would suggest as a corrective action. And then the last one is leading a conversation. So finding a topic that people want to talk about and going for it. So every week I have to come up with a topic of what I want to talk about on these podcasts. And yeah, I'm kind of a free flow. I have a little outline, but I'm mostly like a free flow. The stories that I come up with are like kind of just spur of the moment. I'm just leading the conversation and trying to illustrate in my voice the best way to overcome certain issues. So, leading a conversation, it could be maybe posing a question into like a social media and asking people for their feedback. All right. The next one is chronic overworking and perfectionism, and we touched on this. That's superhuman. So these people push themselves excessively, feeling like they must earn their worth. So these people are, you can almost push people away. And so it's like this blend of perfectionism, soloist, and superhuman of, I don't need anybody, leave me alone, I got this. And they use that as a measure of their worth, of this is my this is what I am giving to the team, but they do it in this isolating way. And they do it to show that they're worth it. Not that they know that they're worth it, but they have these physical achievements or these achievements in their life of, this is why I deserve this. Because of the perfectionism, though, these people will procrastinate and or avoid finishing projects because of the imperfection. So I'm launching a business and I'm like, oh, these things need to be done. Obviously, like there are things that need to be done that I'm struggling with right now, but they'll they won't fulfill on their next step. So the imposter syndrome shows up in that perfectionism, and they're like, it's not perfect, I'm not launching. It's not perfect, I'm not gonna give. I remember I had a manager, and he would get really upset. He's like, I just want something. Like, even if it's partially done, I just want something. And for me, I like to have it at a certain percentage before I would deliver it. And so I had to work on that. Of, okay, this is just where I'm at right now. Here it is, and I'm still working on it. So correction is done is better than perfect. And so done could mean that you've got all these basic things and it can go out and it still can be corrected. It's always going to change. It's always going to be developed. It's always going to be worked on. It's just a work in progress constantly. But the first thing you do is you have the concept, and now you're going to launch that, and then you can kind of break it out in those areas. So we would work on mindset shifting of you've got this much done, it's good, just put it out, and then let's move on to the next thing, and you can focus your energy on that, of making it better or changing it around, because maybe you you launch it and then you discover, oh, people really liked this part of it, and so you kind of tweak it. There's the tweaking that you wanted. I don't know if you're still here, but and then the next piece, for somebody who's overworking, chronic overworking, I mean, they're in burnout, they're stressing, sighing, they're tired. You can see it in their face of like, it's kind of sickly looking. They don't look happy. They don't have this, beautiful vibrance about them. They're just kind of sucked away. And so with these people, I would also encourage, what can I delegate, and or how do I pull myself away from this situation where I can actually rest and trust that the things are going to come out okay. So I talked about it earlier in the podcast of how important rest and digest is for our nervous system. So we want to get out of that stress situation and really get into rest of, how can I really shut down my mind? How can I delegate parts of this project so that I'm not overworking, that I'm putting 100% of myself into the pieces that I know I want to deliver really well into? So it's like having a bunch of boxes. If you're putting a bunch of stuff in all of these putting a bunch of yourself into all of these boxes, and you're kind of like spread out so thin that you aren't getting anything done. It's really like, okay, what boxes can I take away and then focus on the fewer boxes? Maybe there's one or two things that you can focus on, and the rest you can delegate to somebody else to take care of. But you've got your one or two boxes, and now you can dedicate really clear energy into those projects, and then it comes out even better than you would imagine. And then just, I find people that are in this have this lack of trust in others, and so they feel like they have to compensate. That's superhuman. I don't trust anybody else to handle it. I have to do it myself because I'm going to do it the right way. And so finding little pieces to delegate, to show that that is not a true statement, to change that story, to change that authority of your life, to where instead of having to compensate or overcompensate for all of the projects, that you can do it for just one or two and trust others that they're going to take care of the things that you've asked them to. All right, two more things. We're at an hour now. So the next one is avoiding opportunities and or self-sabotaging. It would be silly to think that everyone has not experienced this. Like, I feel that everyone has likely done some of these things on one end or another, but they'll turn down promotions, they'll turn down gigs or even dating opportunities out of fear of not being ready. And I made a post on Facebook a couple days ago of like, oh yeah, I'm working on myself. And if you've ever said this to yourself, like, oh yeah, I'm working on myself, I don't think I'm ready for a relationship, I'm working on myself. It's that fear of not being ready and of you're almost sabotaging any new experiences. What happens in this situation or in this scenario is that we feel that we are not worth, like your worth is under question in this scenario. Okay? And the opportunities that are presenting themselves to you, because you don't feel like you're ready or you don't feel like you're worthy for that, you will push it away. And instead of taking the opportunity and going for something and saying, yeah, let's test this, let's try it out, let's see what it feels like. It, and I'm just as guilty of doing these things as anybody else is. But you kind of quit before you even start. You you choose this inaction, or you choose this like slothful path of I'm not even going to put myself out there, therefore I won't fail. So there's a little bit of fear of failure or fear of not being ready kind of packed into this avoiding opportunities and self-sabotaging. Now, the the best way that I would kind of target this is to look at what's the worst case scenario. Let's say you want to go ask your boss for a raise. I need to be making $15,000 more a year. How am I going to achieve that? What do I got to do to make that much more money? And you can, if you're self-sabotaging, you're not even going to open up and have that conversation. You're not even going to entertain that opportunity. So what's the worst case scenario? He tells you no. Okay. He tells you no. You know that you're worth that 15,000 extra dollars annually. So now that you know that he's just like, you're fired for even asking that. Let's say that's the crazy worst case scenario. But so let's say that happens, but now you know where he finds value in you, and maybe it's a time for you to look at new opportunities outside of that work scenario. So you know that he's not going to give you the raise. So now you're like, okay, well, now I am going to drum up a resume and I'm going to start applying elsewhere. And you can tell him that, or her, you can tell them that, like, I am going to start looking at other positions because I feel my value isn't being seen here. So the worst case scenario exercise exposes these fears that you have, and then you can start taking small steps to be a little bit more bold and to be ready for whatever the